absolutely perfect.
Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm the founder of the DIYgolfer.com, where my mission is simple: to help you shoot your lowest score ever. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Garmin Approach R10 personal launch monitor. And I have two goals for this video. Number one, I want to find out whether this thing is as accurate as Garmin claims it to be. I think that's the number one concern that most people have when getting into the personal launch monitor market. So we're going to take this out to the course, indoors, the driving range, just about everywhere, and really, stack up those numbers and understand just how accurate this thing really is. And then second, but most importantly, we're gonna figure out whether this little device is right for your game. Let's tee up the intro.
So I got my R10 at Play Better, but I'll leave a link to my full review on my site with all the different places you can buy it from. In the box, you're going to get a quick start guide, which is not going to be needed because this thing is super easy to set up. You'll just throw it 6 to 8 feet behind the ball, line it up, and you're good to go. The carrying case is 5x3. It's a little bit bulky, but you'll definitely be able to fit it in your golf bag. The launch monitor is much smaller, about the size of a deck of cards, and it's rated IPX7 waterproof by Garmin, which means it can withstand rain and some other exposure. There's a magnetic stand that you'll put it on, locks in real good. You'll also get a smartphone mount that allows you to, put your smartphone, clip it to your bag while you're using it. And then finally, this thing charges in about an hour or two and lasts for about 10 hours. We're going to get this thing set up in just a second, but I first want to flash some quick facts on the screen. You can go ahead and pause the video and look through these. I do want to make a quick note about the simulation capabilities of the R10. As you can see, it tracks pretty much all the data points that you'd expect with a higher end launch monitor, which means that if you want to, you can set it up with E6 Connect or any of those simulation softwares and build your own personal golf simulator indoors. If you want to do that, here are the indoor space requirements for this thing. You can find more of this on my website, link is in the description. As I mentioned earlier, the setup for this thing could not be simpler. Garmin has done a great job making this a seamless experience between the hardware and the software and just creating a strong overall ecosystem. You'll just hit that button on the back of the R10 device, light will turn green, then it'll flash blue, and you're ready to go. Step off 6 to 8 feet, 8 feet for the driver, 6 feet for wedges, and line that red line up with your target. Once you've done that, download the Garmin Golf app. This thing is completely free to use. There are some paid upgrades we'll talk about later, but using the basic features of the app is absolutely free. So you'll go to the settings, go to Garmin devices, and then hit add device. Halfway down the page, you'll see the Approach R10. Hit start, and then it's going to ask you to pair this thing, and it's going to take just a few seconds after you hit pair for Bluetooth. You'll see a blinking light while that's pairing, and then you should be good to go. After that's paired, you'll go back to the main menu and you'll hit Golf Sim. You'll go to the driving range, which again is a free feature of the app, and you go to distance range and plug in how far you've placed the R10 from the ball. There's also a little handy reference within the app if you forget how far that should be. The app can be used in landscape or portrait mode, so nice for tablets. And before hitting your shot, be sure to select your club so it tracks the right data. And at this point, you're ready to go. Just hit your shot and the R10 will track it, and you'll be able to see it in several different views within the app. Before we get into this accuracy test outdoors, I'm just going to throw on some of my range session to talk about the Garmin Golf app. As a web developer by day, I can honestly say I'm very impressed with the quality of the mobile app and the seamless integration with the hardware. In the range view, you can change the view to see just the numbers while you're hitting. You can make those just the numbers you care about, or see impact details. And you can also go through, and if you look at the bottom little menu right there, you can click on the audio icon and select a metric that the Garmin app will read out loud to you. You can also click the video icon and capture your swing on every shot, which can be great for showing your coach your shot data, stuff like that. In your settings, you can change all of the units of measure, so you can change it from miles per hour to kilometers per hour, so on and so forth. And you can even go into your bag and update the clubs that you're using. That goes all the way to, you can remove clubs like I just did, and you can go in and actually name the clubs and add the different specs for that club. So you can see here I'm adding in the shaft length of my driver, the flex, and then typing in the actual club that I'm using. So that's a pretty cool feature. And this is nice because when you export the data, you'll be able to see these club names and know exactly what you're looking at. Speaking of, you can see your previous golf simulator sessions within the app. And although it's a little bit of a bummer you can't see this, on a desktop device, there is the option for you to export all of this data. So you'll see here in a second that I'll pop this open with all of my shot data for this particular range session. And if you hit that share button in the top right corner, you should be able to airdrop it to your Mac or send it to your email. And then this is what it looks like in Excel. We'll be coming back to this data for our accuracy test, but first I'm going to take you through a brief tour of Home Tee Hero, the last major part of the app.
Alright, so we're going to try to play on Home Tee Hero at the actual golf course. I'm going to see how closely it matches up. Distances, shot shapes, pretty much everything. Okay, so that was maybe like a 2-yard cut. Pretty much right on my target line, maybe a little bit left. See how that ended up. You might notice in the bottom right corner of the screen I'm plus 55. And that is because I had to skip the first 9 holes because Home Tee Hero doesn't let you start on hole 10. And I'm on hole 10 right now. So just a note, a little inconvenient, or I didn't find it at least. But let's go ahead and hit this approach shot. Got a 3-iron in my hand.
Let me pause it real quick. That red dot in the bottom right is where my actual shot landed.
Okay, so kind of hooked that one a little bit. And it's telling me I'm within that circle where I don't have to chip. So went to the next hole. That's you can set that option if you want.
As I finished this hole up in real life, wanted to share my thoughts on Home Tee Hero. It's a $9.99 per month subscription, but compared to some of the bigger players like E6 Connect, which is several $100s for a license, it's a pretty good deal. There's not going to be quite as many advanced features, but honestly, this is a really cool little software, especially to be integrated in the mobile app. You're not going to be able to analyze your rounds with a bunch of data, and it's probably not the best for indoor simulation, but overall, it's a pretty cool feature of the app and the Garmin ecosystem. So we've seen all the features, but is this thing accurate? That is the $600 question here. And I'm going to compare the R10 against a premium Unicore IXO launch monitor, which is mounted overhead in this indoor simulator. For this test, I hit about 3 to 5 shots with every club in my bag. So what I did was I put all of this into a Google Sheet, matched up the shots, and got some averages to compare the accuracy between the Garmin R10, $600, and the Unicore IXO, which is $12,000. So I hit 3 to 5 shots with each of these clubs, And as you can see with the total distance, on average, the R10 is giving me about 12 yards extra over the Unicore. As much as I'd love to claim an average driving distance of 312, I promise you, after hitting thousands and thousands of shots on the course with all of these clubs, the Unicore is a little bit closer to my stock yardages. Looking at carry distance, we have even less of a variance. So on average, the R10 is giving me about 7 extra yards on carry distance. So I think this is a little bit more in line with my stock yardages. Pretty accurate here. After hearing rumors that the R10 was not very good at the spin category, I was surprised to see that it's somewhat in line with the Unicore. These numbers are directionally in line and they're not off by that much. So was pretty happy with this result as well. And side spin is going to be the first strike for the Garmin R10. As you can see, we're pretty all over the board and just flat out wrong on some of these. And that is what I've noticed as I've been using this, is that I'll hit certain shots, like let's say that I'm trying to hit a huge fade that starts way left of the target. What I've noticed is that the R10 will get the launch direction correct, so it starts way left of the target, but then it just stays as a straight shot, so that side spin's really not registering. Maybe there's a way to fix this, but out of the box, this is a no-go for me. The launch angle and the launch direction turned out to be pretty accurate between the two, getting a variation of just a couple degrees, and as I said, it does seem to capture where the ball starts, just doesn't capture the shot shape very well. So we've got the indoor results. Let's take this thing out to the range and see how it does outdoors. Now, the first question you might be asking, since we're outdoors, we're on grass, we're taking divots, and we're gonna have to move that ball to find a good piece of turf on every swing. So does that mean that we have to readjust the R10 for every shot? And the answer is no. Garmin gives us a 2 foot by 2 foot square that we can place that ball and still get supposedly accurate results. So we're gonna put that to the test. For this outdoor test, I hit 3 to 5 golf balls with each of my clubs. And unlike the indoor test, we are now able to compare the R10 versus the R10. So indoors versus outdoors. We have a lot more data points to look at, and we don't really have time to look at all of them. So I'm gonna flash them all on the screen, my averages that I calculated, and you can kind of take a look on your own. Then we'll talk about the overall findings. Just a few notes as these are going up on the screen. The 9 and the 8 iron seem to be outliers outdoors, and all the measurements are going to either be in yards, miles per hour, RPMs, and degrees. So what can we take away here? Number one, when we go outdoors, the R10 is able to directly measure a lot more data points. When it can't directly measure it, it will estimate it with its proprietary algorithm, and you can see that in the data export. Secondly, I think overall the outdoor results are on average a little bit more accurate. And that makes sense because we're using radar technology here, and outdoors the device is able to send those little ping signals off the ball a lot more times than indoors. So that is expected. But what you make up in that added accuracy, you lose in the element of human error. So when you're outdoors, as you can see, you're going to be making divot patterns. You might have some uneven ground. Ball's going to be in a slightly different spot every time. And you're going to be making a lot of adjustments to that R10 device. So if you want to get the most out of this thing, I think the best spot to get the most accurate results is going to be at the range on a mat. You're going to get a lot of consistency there, and you'll have the added benefit of giving that device more of a ball flight to actually track versus the indoors where it's only getting about 10 feet of ball flight. So we've seen this thing indoors, we've seen it outdoors at the range, but let's take it to the course and really find out just how accurate this thing is.
All right, so as you can see, I've got the Garmin R10 sitting right here. Conditions are calm, no wind. I'm using the same exact golf ball for each, so they're all Pro V1Xs from a shag bag. Now it's getting a little bit dark out here, but since this is a radar-based technology, that should not matter. This is used in, military grade operations. It obviously has to work in the dark, and based on the research I've done, it should do that. So let's go ahead and jump in and see how it goes. And by the way, I'm aiming at the same spot for each of these shots, which is perfectly lined up with that Garmin R10. Okay, so that was a little Healy fade, probably about a 10-15 yard fade, I would say. Okay, for our second driver, I'm gonna try to hit a decent sized draw on this. Dead straight. Try to get a draw in here this time. Okay, so that was more of a hook, not as much a draw. Started left, drew a little bit, 10 yards or so. All right, I'm gonna switch to a 3-wood now. Should get some draws out of this because I generally hit that shot with it. That one was a little Healy, ended up about dead straight. So that was a absolutely crushed, perfect draw, about 5 to 10 yard draw. Started a little bit right of the target, ended a little left. Okay, and then the final 3-wood, I'll try to hit a cut with this. Okay, so that was a really nice cut, struck it well, probably a good 15 yard cut that started left of the target, ended maybe 3 to 5 yards right of it. All right, now we're gonna switch to a 5-iron. So that was 2-yard draw, right on the target, a little bit off the toe, so my guess would be 215 carry. This one, just for fun, I'm gonna try to hit a little bit of a stinger, so really flight this one low, and we'll see if that registers here on the Garmin Golf app. So wasn't super low or anything, but should be a little bit lower trajectory. Was a dead straight shot. I'd expect that to carry about 190, maybe a little bit more. And our last 5-iron. This one, I'll try to hit a high fade. We'll go with a high fade on this one. Let me tee it up so I can really get under it. So real wide stance, get that ball up front of the stance. So that shot was struck pure, didn't miss it or anything, but it was very high, so that had a super high trajectory. All right, so we're pretty much playing golf in the dark at this point. I have just enough light to show the camera. Camera's really working hard here, and I also can see the shot shape into this green. So from this location, I'm 140 yards to the pin. I have a pitching wedge. This is gonna be just a stock pitching wedge, maybe 80% or so. But I'm gonna fire up the app here, select my pitching wedge, and let's see what we can do. That shot was dead straight, maybe a 1-yard draw, and it was a little bit left of the pin. That was a little bit fat, and it was about 10 yards right of the pin. Pretty much a dead straight shot. That was absolutely perfect, dead straight, right over the pin, flush contact, probably went over the green. All right, our last stop is a 60-degree wedge shot. Okay, 67 yards, lob wedge, shot number 1. .60-degree, shot number 2.
All right, so we've done all the accuracy testing, we've gone through the setup, all the features of this thing. So who is this for? Who would benefit from buying this product? The first type of golfer that I would recommend this for is someone who is trying to get into the simulation space, having a little bit more fun with their practice at a consumer level price.
To build an indoor golf simulator, usually it's going to take at least $2,000 to buy a premium end launch monitor that tracks both vertical and lateral shot data that allows you to simulate your entire round. But for just $600, this gives you that. And it may not be the most accurate on every data point, but it's a way to break into that space and have some fun and see how you like it. This connects to E6 Connect, a very popular indoor simulation software, or you can just use the built-in Home T Hero for $10 a month. There's tons of options, and I think it would be a great introductory launch monitor. The second type of golfer I think would really enjoy this is going to be someone who's serious about improving their game and gets out there to practice several times per week. Like I said, this is going to be most accurate outdoors at a range on mats. And therefore, I think if you do any winter practice or you're out at the local range, you can just plop this down behind your mat and start tracking your shot data. And you don't have to look at it on every single shot, but you can go back later and export all the data and really get in there and analyze what are the different patterns that you're seeing with your game. Is your equipment right? All that kind of stuff would be super valuable if you're trying to improve your game. I'll close this video out with a few final thoughts, some pros and cons of this device after all this testing. I think my favorite part of the Garmin R10 is just the breadth of features that you're getting and how strong the Garmin ecosystem is. Between the hardware and the software on the app, it's a seamless experience. You're not going to have any problems, and the quality of all of it just seems really good. The second thing I love about this is for the price, this thing is pretty darn accurate. I've tested some other devices in this price range and have not had as much success as this one. I think if you're shopping in that less than $1,000 range, you really can't go wrong with this. I think the only downside that I would talk about with this device is the overall data ecosystem. So as you saw, I can export all of my session stats, which is great, but I have to do it through my phone. And I would love to be able to do that online, on a desktop computer. And I would also love to have better understanding of which data points are calculated, which ones are directly measured, and how Garmin is approaching all of that so that we can have a better understanding of which data points we know we should trust and which ones are a little bit less reliable. Overall, I think this one is a buy. I don't think you can go wrong with the Garmin R10. For the price, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. If you want the full review with all sorts of details, go to the description. I have a link to my site and the full written review. You can find all that there. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed to the channel and liked the video. Coming to you with a lot more videos just like this. Until next time, hit 'em straight, and I'll see you later.